Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Well, after I posted my last video on the looming rail strike, I got an unexpected tsunami of questions regarding what does it all mean, and a lot of you are asking me to provide a more detailed explanation of how it will actually affect you guys. What equipment will be affected, where, for how long, what kind of rates can we expect on the spot market? So because of all of these questions, I decided to make a follow-up video to my last one where we will dig a little bit deeper into the strike's potential immediate effects. These are not long-term effects, just what's going to happen immediately after. Ready? Let's go. First, who are the biggest rail carriers out there? And of course, we're going to be looking only at freight carriers and not passenger carriers. Now, there are a ton to list, but we're actually going to be looking at the four major players that service the United States right now. BNSF and Union Pacific are two rail carriers that service the western portion of the United States. And then there's CSX and Norfolk Southern. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing this, but they are the ones that serve the eastern portion of the United States. So here is the map to show you these four major carriers. The yellow one is Union Pacific and the orange is BNSF. And then on the eastern part of the United States, CSX is in blue and in gray is Norfolk Southern. Yeah, so pretty much these are the four main ones, but these are not all the carriers. And can you imagine what will happen if they all come to a screeching halt? Yikes.
Excuse you, yikes may be on one hand, but on the other hand, they are treated inhumanely. They should strike.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that because the working conditions for these railroad workers are completely inhumane. They're insane. I have had the pleasure of speaking to some of you guys after I posted yesterday's video, and I'm so sorry that you're going through this. It's ridiculous. Now, usually when everything is okay in the transportation network, trucks and rail actually complement each other through intermodal transportation. First, an intermodal container gets loaded at the shipper. Then a drayage carrier comes to pick up that container and delivers it to the rail terminal. And that's where this container gets placed on the train. Once the freight train arrives to its destination rail terminal, that's when another drayage carrier comes to pick up the container and deliver it to its final destination, or at least the contents within the container. After the load is delivered, the empty container gets returned back to the terminal. So the first question I want to address is how will drayage carriers get affected if the strike does end up happening? Well, there are several things that can happen. First, if those trains are no longer in operation, drayage carriers will not need to deliver full containers to the rail terminals. After all, if the train is not moving, then that container is just going to sit there for God knows how long.
Yeah, but won't these drayage carriers now just simply take the container directly from the shipper to its final destination?
Well, here's the thing. Drayage is primarily used for short distances. So they are basically the carriers that fill in the gaps in the transportation chain. But what some people believe might happen is what is known as intercarrier drayage. This is where one drayage carrier takes the container to a point, and then from there, another drayage carrier takes over, and this keeps on happening until the container reaches its final destination. Now let's look at how this potential strike can affect truckload carriers. So as I already said before, for intermodal transportation, what usually ends up happening is a shipper will load a container, then a drayage carrier will come in, pick up that container, deliver it to the rail terminal where it is loaded on a train, and then it goes across the country and gets delivered wherever it needs to be delivered. So just so you guys see, I know this is for 2018. Unfortunately, again, I could not find a more recent graph here, but these are the top 15 markets for intermodal traffic right here for 2018. And as you can see, number one is the Illinois area, number two is the Los Angeles area, number three is Atlanta. And these are the containers and trailers that pass through. So this is something that I thought was really interesting, and you can pause this video to check this out. But my point is, if rail is now off limits, shippers will probably be loading some containers, but also asking for a ton of trucks, long haul trucks, to actually pick up these loads that usually go on containers and therefore on the rail, because rail is not going to be available anymore, at least for however long the strike potentially will last. So now there's going to be a need for more trucks to actually load these products onto the truck and transport these products to their final destination. Now, I think this is very important to see. This is going back to my point of the fact that there are not enough trucks to be able to transport all of this freight. I mean, look at this. This is equivalent units. 14 rail cars is the same as 60 large semis. 100 car trains is the same as 900 large semis. So yeah, not great. What can I say? It is going to cause such a mess in the economy. I can't even begin to explain it. But you know what? At the same time, I can completely understand these rail workers and why they're doing this. I would be doing the same thing. It's ridiculous. Now, another question I've been getting is what type of equipment will be actually affected by this? Is there a specific trailer type or whatnot? And to understand that, we need to look at what kind of commodities are usually transported by rail. And for that, we're going to go right here, and you will see that 52% of all rail freight consists of bulk commodities such as agriculture and energy products. The other 48% of all rail freight consists of consumer goods and other miscellaneous products.
Thanks, Genius. Now we have a perfect idea of what exactly is being transported by these rail cars. I would appreciate a little specificity, please.
Well, let me show you this infographic I found from the Association of American Railroads. Ta-da! I know you can't see anything, so let's zoom in. So these are the commodities transported by rail. There's apples, there's cement, there is safety. I mean, I'm not going to go through all of this, but it's a ton of stuff. Let me just zoom it in so you can see it the best way possible. I think you can see it. So apples, this is a reefer, right? Lumber, this is flatbed. Beer, it could be dry van, reefer, whatnot. Cardboard boxes, dry van. Toilets, could be on a dry van. Could be on a flatbed potentially. You know, nails, washers, dryers, couches, flour. I mean, look at this wine, cookers, onions, coal, petroleum, big one, paint, orange juice. I mean, everything that you can think of can be transported by rail and is transported by rail. So to answer your question of which type of equipment will need to pretty much take over somewhat these commodities, well, it's pretty much all of them. Dry vans are going to be by far the most popular equipment type. And now I'm going to read you something that I found very interesting, so I'm going to share it with you. Paper products, which would now need to be transported on dry vans, are loaded on about 11,600 carloads each week. And that is an additional 40,000 truckloads each week. And this is just one example of a product. It's just paper. Look at how many different products there are. Now I'm going to keep reading. For flatbeds, about 13,000 carloads of metals and 8,100 carloads of lumber and wood products are hauled by train each week. That's about an additional 88,000 flatbed loads per week. And finally, about 13,600 carloads are loaded with food, which will now need to be transported by a reefer. And just so you guys can see, this is the carloads of food and farm-related products. Corn is number one, then there's wheat, soybeans, fresh fruits and vegetables. All of these go on a reefer. So yeah, pretty much all of this now has to be transported by truck.
Maybe you want to touch on fuel a little bit? I mean, I don't know, but it seems pretty important to the trucking industry.
Yes, fuel and diesel prices will probably skyrocket if the strike does end up happening. This is because it will force production cuts at the US petrochemical facilities and the fuel refineries, which could deplete the gasoline and diesel supplies, therefore driving the prices up. Remember.
Yeah, we know supply and demand.
So my point is basically that every single type of equipment in the trucking industry everywhere in the US will be affected by the strike if it does end up happening. As I already mentioned in my previous video, there will be a need for an additional 460,000 long-haul trucks or more on a daily basis in order to cover all the freight that is usually transported by rail. So yes, the rates on the spot market will probably initially skyrocket. The real question is, what is the fall off going to be like? But that is for a different video. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and that I answered some of your guys' questions. Maybe you learned something new today. And also for the rail team that is being affected by these inhumane working conditions, I sincerely hope that you get your terms met and that carriers start appreciating the work you do and treating you with respect that you deserve. Thank you both to truckers and to the rail workers for everything that you do for all of us, and I'll see you guys in the next video.